Here are the top stories for today, March 23, 2021. More vials of hope coming. The country's vaccine czar says around 2.3 million jabs will arrive within this month, which will help boost the inoculation drive. Balancing health and livelihood, President Duterte says the country cannot afford another lockdown as it would mean a disaster for the economy. No halt to practice of faith. The faithful are urged to observe the Holy Week as churches open virtually amid a surge in COVID-19 cases. And heroes in personal protective equipment, we listen to the stories of non-medical frontliners who aid patients in their journey to recovery. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. More inoculations are underway as the country is set to receive more supplies of COVID-19 jabs. This will help the government ramp up its vaccination drive, where it targets to inoculate up to 1 million persons a week in the second quarter of the year. Vaccine czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. admits that while it takes time to vaccinate all the health workers, he assures that the numbers will increase following the arrival of more jabs.
So ang targeted vaccination po natin by April and May, hinahabol po namin na magkaroon po tayo ng 500,000 to 1 million per week. So ang mga director po ng hospital, ang ginagawa nila 100 per day para po makalculate po nila yung mga adverse effect. And then by June and July, baka tumaas po yung ating inoculation katulad ng ginagawa po ng Indonesia at saka po ng US na initially sa unang first 2 months talagang medyo may kabagalan. Pero pagka once na nagkaroon na po tayo ng experience curve, tataas na po ang ating mga bilang.
More health workers and persons listed in the priority list will soon be inoculated with the coming of more COVID-19 vaccines in the country. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. announced that some 2.3 million doses of jabs will arrive until next week. Galvez Jr. said an additional 400,000 doses of Sinovac donated by the Chinese government will arrive tomorrow, while the 1 million doses of the same brand procured by the government will arrive on March 29. Moreover, the COVAX facility through the World Health Organization will be sending 979,200 doses of AstraZeneca vaccines tomorrow until Friday, March 26. The Philippines is also slated to receive 5.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines in the second quarter of this year, part of which is 1.5 to 2 million doses of CoronaVac vaccines, 3 million doses produced by the Gamaleya Research Institute, and 1 million doses will be coming from the COVAX facility. Meanwhile, the Philippines is set to receive more than 8.9 million doses of vaccines in May. Galvez said part of this bulk is 2.6 million doses of vaccine procured under a tripartite agreement among the private sector, national government, and the AstraZeneca company. Some 194,000 doses of Moderna vaccine will also be delivered in May. Around 11.5 million doses will arrive in June, while 13.5 million doses will be delivered in July. Galvez said the government is expecting a steady supply of vaccines in the third and fourth quarters of the year. The country's ambassador to China allayed doubts over the efficacy of the Sinovac jabs. Ambassador Jose Santiago Santa Romana made this assurance ahead of the arrival of an additional 400,000 doses of the jabs in the country. Officials from the Philippine Embassy witnessed the loading of the jabs donated by the Chinese government at the storage facility in Dasing, Beijing on Monday. Santa Romana says other countries such as Indonesia, Chile, Brazil, and Turkey have shown good experiences in the use of Sinovac in their vaccine rollout. He added that the experience of many doctors who have been inoculated with Sinovac jabs proves that it is indeed safe and effective.
Kasi merong problema ngayon. Yung ilang mga bansa, gusto nila bakunahan muna yung kanilang mamamayan. Hindi muna sila magtitinda sa iba o magtitinda sila sa second half of the year, sa katapusan ng taon. Kung gusto maghintay, hindi naman natin pipilitin kung ayaw nila ang Sinovac. Pero ito nga, ginagamit na sa iba't ibang bansa, kasali sa China, at bukod pa sa China. At makakakuha ang Pilipinas. No? Donasyon, bili natin.
President Rodrigo Duterte reiterated that the approved loans made by the Philippines to purchase COVID-19 vaccines are still with multilateral lenders. This after Senators Panfilo Lacson and Risa Ontiveros questioned where the funds for the COVID-19 vaccines are. Duterte explained that the government has not used a single centavo from the borrowed funds from World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank because they have yet to receive doses of the COVID-19 vaccines they purchased.
Yung pera na bilyon-bilyon dyan, nasa kamay ba natin yan ngayon?
Hindi po, nasa bangko pa. Kasi we did not withdraw yet. Kasi we will only withdraw when we pay.
So the reason why I request you to explain this to them. Ang buong akala kasi nila, yung pera na bilyon na ibinigay nila sa Kongreso, nandiyan na sa kamay natin that it's called cash. At nasaan na yung pera. Sinasabi na natin time and again that the money is with the lending banks.
Closing businesses amid a spike in COVID-19 cases would spell disaster for the Philippine economy. President Rodrigo Duterte admitted he could not impose another lockdown since people's source of livelihood would be affected. The president said the surge in COVID-19 cases would be due to the fact that many areas in Metro Manila are heavily laden with people.
Alam mo kasi nanonood ako ng TV and every time COVID is being discussed, they play a certain footage of sa Divisoria. It's just a small place. There are so many thousands there trying to wriggle in and out of. Kung sarahan mo talaga lahat, it would be disaster for the country. So, balance na lang tayo.
Duterte also defended his decision to impose additional restrictions in Metro Manila and 4 nearby provinces such as Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal. These areas are placed under a general community quarantine or GCQ bubble until April 4 to curb the spread of COVID-19.
The curtailment of your free to travel is always subject to the power of the state to control the movement of its citizens, especially if there is a pandemic.
Officials of local government units have moved up as essential frontliners in the vaccine priority list of the government. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said LGU officials will be part of the A4 priority with other frontline personnel in essential sectors, including uniformed personnel and those in working sectors. Roque said other government officials such as cabinet members remain under the B2 category, while more government officials and workers have contracted COVID-19. Roque clarified that not all government officials will be included in the priority list. Health Secretary Francisco Duque reiterates the importance of proper wearing of face masks and face shields to contain the spread of coronavirus disease. He said this measure gives 95% protection against COVID-19.
Umiikot po ako halos araw-araw. Pupunta ako sa mga palengke. Doon ko talaga po nakikita na parang hindi na nasunod yung nakaganon po, Mr. President, tapos ng face shield. Talagang nakaganon na lang Parang token lang ang compliance So ako po nakikiusap sa kanila at patuloy na umiikot para sabihan ng mga mamamayan, kasama ko po ang mga alkalde, na sumunod po tayo.
Duque emphasized the need to follow the minimum health protocols, noting that the entry of COVID-19 variants in the country may have contributed to the spike in the number of positive cases. He advised the public to stay at home to minimize contact rate. President Rodrigo Duterte earlier placed Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal under a general community quarantine bubble where only essential travel in and out is allowed. Still to come, the government sees a drop in COVID-19 cases once the 2-week GCQ bubble in Metro Manila and neighboring areas is over. And it's an indoor Holy Week observance for another year as churches call off activities amid a surge in COVID-19 cases. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang clarifies that the travel bubble imposed in Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal cannot be called a lockdown but mere restriction to minimize the cases of COVID-19. The government is hoping for a 25% reduction in COVID-19 cases as a result of this measure. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said the Philippine economy could not afford to go through another lockdown which will result in loss of jobs and livelihood of even more Filipinos.
Hindi naman po sa kawalan ng ayuda yan. Kung talagang kinakailangan, nothing is etched in stone. Kung talagang kinakailangan at ito'y hindi maging sapat, baka konsiderasyon pa rin yan. Pero sa ngayon po, talagang kinikilala na natin ang problema ng pagkagutom na magre-resulta kapag sinarado po natin ang ekonomiya. So, pigilan natin ang mobility pero hayaan natin maghanap buhay ang lahat.
Roque also assured that assistance for companies, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, are still being provided by concerned agencies. For his part, MMDA Chair Benhur Abalos Jr. pointed out that granular or localized lockdowns are still being implemented in areas with high COVID-19 cases.
Meron pa rin pong lockdown, but these are just granular lockdowns, which the mayors feel is more effective because in a way, yun ang clustering of cases ang nalilimitahan mo, bibigyan pa ng ayuda yan ng gobyerno for the mayors, and of course, the healthy population can still go to work.
12 more local government units in Negros Occidental have rolled out the registration process for the Philippine Identification System, or PHILSYS, since March 16. This brings to 18 the total number of LGUs in the province now taking part in the gradual rollout of the Step 2 PHILSYS registration. The Philippine Statistics Authority said they have started the Step 2 process in 12 towns and cities, in addition to the 6 LGUs with ongoing registration since last month. It said the national ID list-up has been smooth except for last week when the PSA registration office was placed on lockdown for disinfection. The Step 2 registration process involves the validation of supporting documents and capturing the registrant's biometric information. Based on the data of PSA Western Visayas, over 800,000 low-income household heads and members in Negros Occidental have been pre-registered for the PHILSYS. A Catholic priest urged the faithful to observe virtual Lenten activities in the comforts of their homes as churches in Metro Manila are closed for 2 weeks, particularly throughout Holy Week. Father Jerome Siciliano, Executive Secretary of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP Permanent Committee on Public Affairs, said the public can still perform their religious duties inside their houses by participating virtually. He said devotees can do a virtual visita iglesia and pray the way of the cross inside their homes or by tuning into church-run radio. As for the observation of Palm Sunday on March 28, the palms are going to be blessed by priests during the scheduled masses online and on radio. Meanwhile, in Manila, some Catholic churches have decided to switch to online mass streaming only after suspending public attendance. Several churches temporarily suspended holding of public masses in compliance with the national government's newly issued protocols on physical distancing. Instead, the faithful may virtually participate and attend masses inside their homes. Manila still has 2,933 active cases as of Monday morning. In our business news, the government banks are encouraged to continue providing loans to micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, to keep their businesses afloat amid tighter quarantine conditions. University of the Philippines School of Economics Alumni Association President Jeffrey Nang said it is crucial that MSMEs survive amid the pandemic as they account for the bulk of employment in the country. He said the government should take the risk of lending to MSMEs as only they can infuse needed liquidity and credit to small entrepreneurs all over the country. He said the government should take the risk of lending to MSMEs as only they can infuse needed liquidity and credit to small entrepreneurs all over the country. The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, has been rolling out its COVID-19 assistance to restart enterprises, or CARES program, since last year. The CARES program provides zero-interest loans to MSMEs. Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry Vice President Cecilio Pedro, meanwhile, said once the COVID-19 immunization program for the general public starts, the government will put all their resources to bring back the economy to a pre-COVID level. Several banks shortened their operating hours until April 4 after the government reimposed stricter quarantine measures in Metro Manila and 4 nearby provinces. PS Bank said its branches in Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal started to operate from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday to Friday. PS Bank branches outside the so-called NCR Plus bubble will keep their regular banking schedule of between 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Cebu Lapu-Lapu will, however, operate from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., while Cebu Consolacion will be open from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. PS Bank encouraged clients to use mobile and online banking services and check their nearest ATM locations. Meanwhile, branches of United Coconut Planters Bank, or UCPB, in NCR and the 4 provinces will be open between 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. over the next 2 weeks. UCPB encouraged its clients to check the list of branches and their operating schedule through their website. Up next, from open to closed real quick, some provinces reimpose restrictions for travelers. And Service Above Self, we listen to the stories of these non-medical heroes in PPE from a quarantine facility. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The city government of Baguio has canceled applications of tourists from Metro Manila and neighboring provinces. At the same time, Mayor Benjamin Magalong discouraged everyone from traveling to Baguio while COVID-19 cases are on the rise. Magalong supported the resolution of the Interagency Task Force, or IATF, which prevented residents of Metro Manila, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, and Bulacan from going out of their respective provinces until April 4. With the move, Magalong said they expect a big drop in the number of tourist arrivals, especially during the Lenten season. Meanwhile, Governor Eugenio Jose Lacson has requested the IATF to approve a moratorium for all land, air, and sea travels to Negros Occidental for 2 weeks. Lacson made the request to Health Secretary Francisco Duque and Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, IATF chairperson and co-chairperson, after COVID-19 cases in the province started to go up again in the past week. Lacson said the introduction of uniform travel protocols resulted in an increasing number of confirmed cases in many LGUs, especially Manampla, Cadiz, Sagay, Escalante, Calatrava, San Carlos, and Sipalay. He also said the provincial quarantine facility for COVID-19 confirmed cases with mild symptoms is nearly reaching its maximum capacity. Negros Occidental has a total of 7,101 confirmed cases since March 2020. Malacanang says it believes that the incursion of the Chinese militia vessels off Julian Felipe Reef or Union Reefs in the West Philippine Sea would not escalate to a repeat of the 2012 Scarborough Shoal standoff. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque expressed confidence that strong ties between the Philippines and China would prevent such an incident from happening again. Roque, however, said he will leave the matter to the Department of Foreign Affairs. The Armed Forces of the Philippines on Monday confirmed the presence of the Chinese vessels spotted within the country's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf off Julian Felipe Reef. In a statement, the Chinese embassy in the Philippines and some Chinese fishing vessels recently took shelter near Julian Felipe Reef due to rough sea conditions. The embassy also clarified there is no Chinese maritime militia in the area, which it identified as part of China's Nansha Islands. And in Cagayan de Oro City, a barista is making a living and a name for himself amid the pandemic with his set of skills and his mobile coffee shop. Reguero Nicole Rubio lost his job at a local hotel as COVID-19 crippled businesses last year. However, he took the opportunity to follow his dream to open a mini bar or coffee shop. With the help and advice of his family and fellow baristas and some cash aid from the Department of Labor and Employment, Rubio outfitted a surplus bike and launched a mobile coffee shop in February this year. Rubio plies his regular routes at least 4 times a week, with Rodelsa Rotunda as one of his usual spots on weekend afternoons. Recently, he launched a physical store as an extension of his business. Rubio says his motivation for running his coffee shop business is his family. Whenever the term frontliner is mentioned, people often think first of doctors, nurses, and other medical personnel. Aside from them, non-medical support staff are also among those who help pave the way to patients' recovery. How is this possible? Teresa Montemayor gives us the answers.
Contracting COVID-19 is probably the last thing you would want to happen to you. But as they say, things come when you least expect them. Yes, I am part of the figures, and fortunately, I survived. In my journey to recovery from late February to mid-March, I learned that some heroes in personal protective equipment include people working as support staff in quarantine facilities who have their unique roles in this battle. As soon as he wears his PPE, work and another day of battle against the virus starts for 32-year-old janitor Alvin Alba at the Ultra Quarantine Facility in Pasig City. His tasks include collecting patients' laundry, cleaning toilets, and assisting patients who have already recovered. Alvin and his teammates underwent training on facility decontamination, correct wearing of PPE, and observance of minimum health standards before being deployed to the facility. Meanwhile, Alvin's co-worker, Maricon Rabosa, distributes meals to patients. To avoid direct contact with the patients, Maricon leaves their food on the chairs outside their cubicles. For Alvin and Maricon, it is really difficult to be away from their loved ones, but they have to make a sacrifice for their own family's safety. And, of course, a journey isn't complete without a driver. Take it from the 40-year-old ambulance driver Enzo Cruz, who courageously cheers patients to complete their journey towards recovery. For him, adequate training, coupled with faith in God and observance of health standards, save him from COVID-19. While the pandemic has taken a toll on the world, it never dampened the Filipino spirit of saving lives one step at a time. As long as there are people like Alvin, Maricon, and Enzo who have the heart to serve despite an adversity, our country is one step closer to the light at the end of a dark tunnel.
Alaya na ako.
For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Teresa Montemayor.
Here's another look at today's biggest stories. More vials of hope coming. The country's vaccine czar says around 2.3 million jabs will arrive within this month, which will help boost the inoculation drive. Balancing health and livelihood, President Duterte says the country cannot afford another lockdown as it would mean a disaster for the economy. No halt to practice of faith. The faithful are urged to observe the Holy Week as churches open virtually amid a surge in COVID-19 cases. And heroes in personal protective equipment, we listen to the stories of non-medical frontliners who aid patients in their journey to recovery. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.